You've probably heard of The Walking Dead or perhaps The Living Dead, but we're guessing this is the first time you've heard of The Dancing Dead. Today, we're not going to recount for you some fictional thriller wherein the dead come back to life, but we're going to explain to you how the unliving move. You might have thought that the dead rest in peace, but it seems that's not always the case. It turns out we're wigglers when we're no longer breathing. We're turning in our graves, so to speak, moving to the beats of the underworld. Let us explain. To get to the bottom of this, we must first go to Sydney, Australia, and look at something called a body farm. No, that's not a place where human bodies are grown, and we should explain what these places are all about. Body farms are where cadavers are taken so scientists can better understand how we decompose. The bodies are left to decompose in a natural environment, hence the name farm, and then they're monitored. Why would we do this? The answer in crude terms is so forensic scientists can study how quickly we rot. Knowing the stages of decomposition in such a natural setting can be of use to forensic anthropologists and also law enforcement. You can find these farms in the USA, but there's also one in Australia. Australia might soon have one more too. You might be wondering how they actually get the bodies, since it would be quite unethical just to take the dead there. In some cases, people sign up to be left at a body farm after they die, and sometimes the bodies are donated. This usually happens when a body has not been claimed. At one facility in Texas, bodies are brought to the farm on gurneys, dropped off, and then the observation process begins. As you can imagine, some local residents in the past have aired their complaints about a body farm setting up near them, with people protesting when one body farm was opened in Tennessee. Some of those protesters held up signs saying, "This makes us sick." But such farms argue researchers are needed. Still, some people who lived close to one particular farm said the place stunk, while others said they could see the rotting corpses from their house windows. Now, back to Australia, and the only body farm outside the United States. Its full name is the Australian Facility for Taphonic Experimental Research. One researcher working at this farm, the place, which isn't exactly in Sydney, but in a bushland about 40 miles away, spent 17 months watching a body. Her name is Allison Wilson, and she reported that something strange went down at that farm. The body seemed to be moving in the grave. She'd check on it only to come back later and it had done a jig. She said she left and the arms were down at its side. And when she came back, the arms were thrown in the air like it was dancing at an eternal rave for the dead. Was someone playing a trick on them? What was going on? Well, she and her team used time-lapse cameras to watch the body. When the video was played back to them, something strange and perhaps frightening or fun, depending on your take, happened. In the video, the body really did throw its arms in the air. What she found out after this is that some bodies have a moving routine when they're in a state of decomposition. She published her findings in a journal, Forensic Science International, Synergy. This finding still needs to be peer-reviewed though. So what was going on? There are a lot of reasons a body might move slightly after death, and sometimes this might be because of maggots or other critters that are having a feast. Sometimes fly or beetle larvae can make the body move, and sometimes bloating that goes down after gases are let go can make the body move slightly, but this might not be the case in the dancing bodies, and scientists are still trying to figure out why those bodies did their afterlife routine. It's likely just because of the mummifying process when the body dries out, but that's not certain either. The thing is, bodies decompose differently in certain environments. This might also make a difference as to how the body moves. What's important for law enforcement is that if indeed bodies do move, then how they move might give forensic scientists a better idea as to when the dead died exactly. The Australian scientists believe she might have discovered something very important that perhaps has been overlooked in the past. In interviews, she said she's always been fascinated by the dead and what happens after death. And so for her, getting down with the dead bodies was her calling. In one particular interview, she said, "Once I observed a movement in a previous study, I started researching and I couldn't find anywhere in the world that looks at quantifying the movement. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna do this." The jury is still out as to what's happening exactly to those moving bodies, but some reports suggest that scientists are now gobsmacked. Another scientist was reported as saying, knowing that body movement can result from the decomposition process rather than scavengers or original placement will be important when it comes to determining what happened, particularly if this movement is much greater than first believed. You would think that bodies in the US were also filmed using a time-lapse technique, but it seems right now the Australian researcher is ahead of the pack when it comes to how bodies move after death. We should point out that just after death, bodies can move a lot. This is due to rigor mortis. Bodies can move, twitch, but from we can see not sit right up. But these are early stages of death, and in Australia, the movements were over months. As you might have seen in our What Happens When You Die show, other strange things can occur, such as the body emitting sounds or, believe it or not, cadavers giving birth. Nails and hair might grow, and there have been cases of bodies just exploding. But cadavers dancing in the dark after such a long time dead is still a pretty big discovery. After hearing this, how do you think you'd feel about living next to a body farm? What about moving bodies? What's your theory as to why dead folk do a jig when dead? Tell us what you think in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, The Strangest Ways People Died. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.